From the beginning of both films, Star Wars and Indiana Jones have gone hand in hand. This may be news for some, but the idea of the archaeologist who the latter films are focused on was famously conceived on a Hawaiian beach while George Lucas hid from what he expected would be a terrible opening for Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope. That's where he and Steven Spielberg came up with Raiders of the Lost Ark. The two franchises swapped positions from year to year, dominating the box office for 4 years. While Star Wars may have had some logistical difficulties in doing so, considering its story took place long before Indiana Jones was even born, Indiana Jones wasn't bound by the same limitations. Each of the 4 movies in the Indiana Jones saga tipped its beaten-up old fedora to its sibling in a galaxy far, far away. Here are all the Star Wars Easter eggs you can find in the Indiana Jones movies. First, we have the plane from Raiders of the Lost Ark featuring familiar call signs. This one's a shot from the very beginning, the opening sequence of Raiders of the Lost Ark, which concludes with Jones running for his life from a group of hostile natives. We see him sprinting towards Jock, the pilot, and his plane, which has call letters printed on the side of it. If you look closely, you can make out that the letters form a familiar pattern, OBCPO, referencing Obi-Wan Kenobi, as well as C-3PO. With a keen enough eye, you may also notice some more Star Wars cameos in the same movie. This is one of the most famous Easter eggs in the franchise, even though it was pretty easy to miss before we had the ability to slow tapes down. When we get to see the Well of Souls containing the Ark, the Egyptian hieroglyphics inscribing every inch of the walls include a depiction of none other than R2-D2 and C-3PO carved out together. Moving on to Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, we're welcome to Club Obi-Wan. They didn't even try to hide this one. The movie opens at Club Obi-Wan in Shanghai, where Willie Scott performs in the stage act, and we see Jones negotiating with local gangsters over the remains of an ancient emperor. This scene is kind of problematic when it comes to political correctness, which is why it may be easy for some viewers to forget about the Easter egg staring them in the face, especially because when we are shown the sign, Indy and Willie are escaping the gangsters through a window. Even Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade had something interesting hidden in plain sight, but it was still more subtle than its 2 predecessors and may have been a bit more of a reach as well. The movie opens with the franchise's typical standalone sequence, which culminates in a chaotic showdown on the ship off the coast of Portugal. Panama Hat, another one of Indy's foes, descends onto the rainy deck, and that's when you can spot the words Carbonetto, stamped on a set of barrels stacked on top of each other. Carbonetto means carbide in Portuguese, and it's a chemical that was used in lamps in the 1930s, but the word is also similar to carbonite, the made-up mineral in Star Wars that imprisoned Han Solo in Episode 5. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull goes beyond visual Easter eggs. This one is definitely considered to be the weakest one of the saga, but isn't because of a lack of Star Wars Easter eggs. When MacGuffin is finally activated in the climax of the film, and alien technology starts to activate around everyone, Indy says, "I have a bad feeling about this." If you're a Star Wars fan, you know exactly where that one's from. It sort of became a running gag throughout the saga, heard for the first time in Episode 4 and then reappearing in every subsequent movie. It's also heavily featured in other Star Wars media, like comics, books, and video games. In fact, you can even find a minute-long video compilation of every "I have a bad feeling about this" in Star Wars. There are other Easter eggs that have been snuck in there as well, not just Star Wars ones. For example, several characters in the saga are named after the creator's dogs, including Indiana Jones, who was the name of George Lucas' own dog. In fact, the same dog even inspired Harrison Ford's furry friend, Chewbacca. Besides characters named after real pets, some of them were even inspired by real people. For example, in an early scene from The Last Crusade, Indy refers to a Dr. Tyree, who was Harrison Ford's actual philosophy professor in college. Also, the sage plays homage to other franchises as well, James Bond. In fact, the ultimate 007 Easter egg in the series is the casting of Sean Connery himself as Indy's father in The Last Crusade. In Temple of Doom, we even see Indy wearing a dinner jacket that's a dead ringer for James Bond's outfit at the beginning of the 1962 Goldfinger. Spielberg even included other references to his own work in Raiders of the Lost Ark, Think about that classic sight gag from Raiders of the Lost Ark when that Nazi who gets his face melted takes out what appears to be a torture device, and it turns out to be a collapsible coat hanger. Now think back to 1941, Spielberg's World War II comedy. The same gag was used there as well. Meanwhile, Star Wars may not be as forthcoming with its homage to Indiana Jones, but it's been done wherever possible. For example, in Solo, a Star Wars story, the golden idol Jones appears in gangster Dryden Voss's collection. Also, Emperor Palpatine's death in Rise of Skywalker resembles the infamous face-melting scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark. Even the Clone Wars has a bunch of Indiana Jones Easter eggs. In Season 1, Episode 12, titled The Gungan General, you can see a staff that looks a lot like Indy's staff of Raw. Then in Episode 21, titled Liberty on Ryloth of the same season, you might be able to spot an item very similar to the Ark of the Covenant. After all the subtle references, the two worlds finally collided in Andor. But it happened in the least expected way. The series changes Star Wars in many ways, departing from the typical cheesy lines and storytelling methods, which is why fans expected Andor's Easter eggs to also take a departure from the ones we saw in Star Wars. Before the series came out, the showrunner even made it clear that the series wasn't going to include cynical fan service, so expectations for Easter eggs are low. But that wasn't the case at all. Andor is filled with Star Wars references. Even after being told not to follow the traditional Star Wars style, they snuck in a bunch of things here and there. We were even given a closer look into Luthen's shop, for starters. If you've been paying attention, you'll know that Luthen has some pretty interesting and unique artifacts lining his shelves, and that continues to be true in this latest series and episode. Luthen's art department had various things that added an appreciated sense of credibility, like the oversized Jedi and Sith holocrons. Alongside those callbacks, there was also a set of armor that bore a striking resemblance to Starkiller's Sith Stalker armor from The Force Unleashed. Even one of Padme's headpieces, a Jedi Temple guard's mask, and tablets with mortise paintings could be spotted in Luthen's inventory. That's not it. You can also see a Gungan shield from The Phantom Menace, more slabs of carbonite, Mandalorian armor, and a Wookiee helmet, all in Luthen's shop. Then there were some references to the Indiana Jones franchise as well. In Episode 4, titled Aldhandi, Mon Mothma returns to Luthen's shop where she and Luthen discuss rebellion business, and we get to see an even more obscure reference. Alongside a Keldor breathing mask honoring the fallen Plo Koon, you can spot something frozen in carbonite. Upon closer examination, the item turns out to be Indiana Jones' trusty bullwhip. We all know that whip is as much a part of Jones as his trademark fedora and pistol. He isn't Indiana Jones without it. And just behind that, you can see the fertility idols from Raiders of the Lost Ark, also frozen in carbonite. The second Easter egg references the Temple of Doom. In The Axe Forgets, when the episode ended with a shot of Rael among his collection of memorabilia, listening to radio waves to keep track of Cassian Andor and the Revel cell he has partnered up with, fans caught a glimpse of some big oval-shaped stones with odd markings placed on the shelves right behind him. The stones are the Sankara stones, which Jones was asked to retrieve from the Thuggee cult. So does Indiana Jones actually kind of exist in this world? And instead of who we know him as, he's depicted as this artifact-hunting badass woman named Dr. Aphra? All this has led people to believe that the two franchises may actually exist in the same universe. It's not just that fans can't imagine a world where that isn't the case, the film's creators are just as complicit in the whole thing. Like we've already mentioned, multiple Star Wars movies are stuffed with Indiana Jones Easter eggs and vice versa. It's almost like they want fans to find the well-hidden clues that prove that both franchises exist in the same universe. Some people think that the whole story of Indiana Jones could be Han Solo's fever dream while he's frozen in carbonite. Others think Jones could be Han's clone. Still, others think Han Solo may have become Indiana Jones after he arrived in the spaceship in Crystal Skull. And then there's the theory that states that Han Solo is one of Indiana Jones' descendants. Some others have gone even further, positing that maybe Han Solo never aged because of the Holy Grail from his time as Indiana Jones. It's a deep, deep rabbit hole if you ever decide to look into it. That's a wrap for this video. What are your thoughts about both franchises being a part of the same universe? Does it seem too far-fetched to be true? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.